This is some classic. It's some classic sizzler.
Language, but
put out some stuff. I think he reached us one time with an email about one of his older videos that seen everybody and their mama come out hopefully shortly on the reconstruction, the Ethiopic reconstruction of ancient Egypt and the Exodus, to show that, yes, there's a metaphysical reality in the ancient Egyptian story and the Bible story that harmonizes what Moses was familiar with. But to contradict those who say there was no real physical Exodus, we have evidence, you understand, that they have not been able to dispute, and then when we put out our work, they can look over it, and if it comes up for critical review and we have to step back and say, hey, we thought it was that, but these facts prove it, this or that, but we looked at a lot of different angles of the story, especially from the Ethiopic angle, and it would have been one of the Thutmoses, the Tutmoses, or Thothmoses, you understand, and most likely Thothmoses III, was that Pharaoh, that Egyptian Pharaoh of the Exodus. But the one who did not know, Joseph would have been the one who drove out the Hyksos. You know the Hyksos. You know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Hyksos, right?
Yeah, I hear about the Hyksos.
Yeah, the Hyksos or Hyksos or Hyksos is different ways that it's said. But the Hyksos were not just.
Romania,
I didn't hear you.
The Hyksos is from like Romania.
No. The Hyksos were were the ones who allowed the Afrocentric teachers. If you look at a lot of the Afrocentric videos about Egypt, they will say that the Hyksos were the usurpers, the ones who interrupted the native black rulership. They were a combination of like a lot of Mediterranean and Middle Eastern peoples. In fact, there's a wall painting of captives in Seti's tomb, in King Seti's tomb. And it shows like an Arab-looking guy. It shows some even Asian, in the old Egyptian paintings. It shows a dark-skinned black guy. And it shows another kind of Middle Eastern, Asian kind of looking guy. And all of those people were considered the Hyksos. The Hyksos was a term, some say shepherd kings, but it also meant in Egypt, not just shepherd kings. Some of them were kings. Some of those Hyksos were kings, but not all of them were kings. The phrase would be foreigners. It's like today when they talk about immigrants in America. If you notice how a lot of the Mexicans and some of the Mexicans and Hispanics can pass for Arabs. If you look at some of the black people in America are actually from the West Indies, but they're black people just like the black people in America, but legally speaking, they are called immigrants, and when immigration goes around, they collect the ones from the black people from the Caribbean, as well as the Mexican and the Hispanic people, and the terminology that they use for that whole group, right, is immigrant. So the terminology Hyksos, although originally it meant shepherd kings in the sense of Jacob and Esau, it began to include other people because remember Esau, he married a lot of people outside of the direct bloodline. So he married a lot of those Middle Eastern and other ethnicities, including black. But it wasn't only black. That's what has confused a lot of people about the Hyksos for so long, because they were black physically, but they were also non-black physically, because they wasn't just like one. It's like how you see Hispanics sometimes. You see dark-skinned black Hispanics, and they're speaking blah 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 blah, and you'd be like, what? You say you speak that, and they're like, yes, papi, I'm from Panama, Waping Lao, and you'd be like, wow, you know what I mean? And then you find also lighter-skinned people among blacks. So we have that. We can't judge it by just color. And what the European has been trying to do is trying to term it as color. He's been trying to say that they were Jews or Hebrews in the sense of white Jews, because some of them favor that complexion from the wall paintings. But when you look at how the Egyptians looked at them, they didn't look at them as one racial group. They looked at them as an entire group that, from their perspective, were foreigners. You understand? And when the foreigners rose up, like nowadays with the black people rising up a little bit, with the Hispanics, with the immigrants from Asia and China, and it's become like a melting pot. So the regular white Americans are taking this like a invasion, and they feel like they've been out of power for all these generations, you know what I mean, because of Obama and stuff like that. So in the same sense, that's how it was seen, the Hyksos back in ancient Egypt. So in that Hyksos group, when they talk about the king that did not know Joseph, it was actually, some say it was Amenhotep or Amenhotep, which was the first king that led into that Thutmose generation, because it wasn't, remember, what Moses talked about in Exodus didn't happen in 1 year. He's giving a summary of events that led up to his birth. And so after Joseph had died, Joseph ruled over, Joseph would have been included in the Hyksos. At that time, Esau's children were running Egypt, portions of Egypt. Remember Esau in the Bible. Esau's children was running Egypt. And Esau's children running Egypt allowed for Joseph, because they were friendlier then. At that earlier time, they were friendlier. You understand? Before the enmity between Jacob and Esau kind of developed. But then when Ahmose or Kamose, one they call Kamose, when he came from lower region Ethiopia, he drove the Edomites out, and the Amorites. He drove the Edomites and the Amorites, but then he not enslaved in the sense of white man slavery, but he downpressed the Hebrew part. You know, because even today they can separate the immigrants from the immigrants. And now we have West Indian immigrants that already can pass as first-generation African Americans. Many West Indians can call themselves African American because they've been here long enough, although from an African American perspective, we would say, well, you all haven't been African American long enough. It's just, you know what I mean? So we have those bullshit, but those issues. But we have to look at, when we look at ancient Egypt, we have to see the same thing keeps going on. Jah told us already. Jah told us if we can see the cycles, the seasons, we'll see what season we're in. We'll see the invisible spirit behind the picture that we're looking at. We'll be able to see it and mark it. So I just want to share that with the eye, because that question that was asked, I said, I want to say this, but I don't want to go out on this right now because we probably don't have much time to talk about it. So I went over the data, and then I said, this old book I got to put out there, and then also, if Jah wills, produce a book that can give a reconstruction from a Rastafari and an Ethiopian perspective of the events of ancient Egypt. So there was a physical exodus, but why people confuse it is that they forget that the Edomites were Hebrews, because they come from Abraham, as well as the Jacob's children, or the Israelites. And one part of the family was kicked out, was driven out when the Hyksos were driven out. One part of the family remained, because the Jacob's children, like Joseph and Jacob and the other tribes, they married more Egyptians or Ethiopians. They married more of the native people, but they got along with Esau too, because Esau was their brother. I guess you could say we were real Jews then. Basically, we worked according to what works for us. But for the other group, for the native Egyptians, they were vexed with us, because it's like though we married into them. You understand? We also were, going along with the Hyksos, who they viewed to be like an impure and unclean people, because remember Esau, he married a lot of different women. He married the Canaanites, and even Abraham said, don't marry the Canaanites. Marry other black Syrians and those black people, or even Ethiopians, like the Midianite woman, but don't marry, you understand, don't marry these don't marry some of these non-Rastafari or non-Ethiopian or Ethiopian Christian religious people. In other words, don't marry the people who are just plain and simple Gentiles. And so Esau's children were cast out, were driven out of Egypt, and then another set of persecutions came down on us, because we were partly Egyptian, and partly like Moses married an Ethiopian woman. Abraham married his third wife was either Ethiopian or Egyptian. Joseph married Egyptian. I mean, should we go on? I mean, we can go on. You know what I mean? So that shows that part of the family, Jacob's part of the family, vibes more with the marriages to Egyptians or Ethiopians, native black people, while Esau, like you have somebody in your family that just likes everything that's the other. You know what I mean? That's how they are. You know what I mean? You'd be like, why, you for another white girl, man? You keep those white, I like them, man, because now he's a black woman. They can't get down for their own woman. You know what I mean? But some of us say, yeah, it's a problem sometimes, but we trust God, do the right thing, it'll work out. We have faith. You know what I mean? But not me. I'm a marry. I like that foreign woman. You know what I mean? I like that foreign woman. So that's a little bit of the story. But I'm going to go into more detail, John willing, so I can put down some of the evidence that I have, so others like yourself or whoever want to study this can then look at the facts, go check it out, and if you find any errors or anything that can be contravened or contradicted by facts, hey, I give thanks, But yeah, man. So I hope these reasonings, and I hope to hear a reasoning from the eye to a reasonment, when the time and opportunity come, because we're in those days, and Happy New Year.
Yes, man. I glad for the man to share that light there, because I always wondering who this king that recognize, and the way how they perpetrate that, the slavery of these white Jews, and
we just have to recognize too. Remember, the Father told us if our ancestors didn't do the right thing, then in order for Him to be righteous and just, He would have to punish us. Now the white man, he went way too far, but you know what? God's gonna handle the white man's ass, his donkey, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's gonna deal with him. But what we have as black men, as I was explaining to the sister, and even some of the videos trying to explain, we as black men have a God situation. If you could read the Hebrew or the Amharic, you'll see that when Jah is talking to Israel, many places in the Old Testament, like the Torah or the Orit, the 5 books of Moses, he is speaking to male singular. In other words, in the sense of the language, he's speaking to each of us black men. Like, imagine all of us hearing that message. He's speaking to each of us. We should each take this message personally. So it kind of shows me in that sense of things that when we as black men can get our brotherhood up to speed, you understand, get past all that COINTELPRO satanistic BS that seeks to divide and conquer us, and found our fraternity or our society on a divine, a job-based order. You know what I mean? Then we'll start to see the real turnarounds, even with our women and even with our relations with other people and ourselves. Because our problem is a God problem. Deuteronomy chapter 28 should kind of explain every single thing you see in Deuteronomy chapter 28 verses 15 to 68 has only been fulfilled perfectly in black folks. I mean, look at this. There's no byword that Jews are called beside Jews, and Jews is not even a byword. It's an abbreviation of Judah. But the byword that's known for us is nigger and negro. I mean, if that's not the clearest thing where God says we will leave our name for a curse, compared to being Israel, Beta Israel, Ethiopian, Hebrew, Rastafari, calling ourselves nigger. That's like real. That's some real. You know what I mean? I mean, it don't mean nothing. But see, that's the proof. The Jews never been called nigger. That's why I say that. What's his name? Jeremiah Wright. He was right. Jeremiah Wright was not white, but he was right when he said about nigger that Obama know what it's like to be called nigger. To a degree, he does know that. But listen, we got a Joseph type now. Obama up there in the White House and Pharaoh's house. Let us try to build our brotherhood. Let's try to build our fraternity in the spirit. You understand, while we can, and move forward, hopefully together and collectively. From this to higher heights. Awo.
Give thanks and praise unto the Most High, Pride Selassie, the first.
Yeah, this is some classic. It's some classic sizzler.